All right, let's take a look at a class that has some methods that can throw an exception. So here is our class called Circle with Exception. Here's the beginning of our class definition. We have a field, a private field, to hold the radius of the circle. We have a static field to hold the number of objects that have been created. How many circles have been created from this class, basically, is what that is. And you can see, I'm going to jump down here on the constructor. When we create a new circle, we're adding 1 to the number of objects. Now there's a problem I see with this is they have a default constructor too. Oh, it's actually calling this other one. So no matter what, when we create a circle, it's going to add 1 to that number of objects. Because it's static, remember, it only keeps 1 copy of the variable in the class, not in the individual objects. So after each object, this will go up by 1. It's not unique to the class. So here's the first constructor. It's the default constructor that basically just calls the constructor we want to run. So if somebody just creates a new circle with exception without specifying something in the parameter, it just creates one of size 1 by calling this constructor, which sets the radius to whatever they do. So if they say circle with exception with a 5, it's going to create a circle with a radius of 5. Here is the getter. We get the radius of our circle if we want to get it. Here is the set radius. And it requires us to pass in a double, and it specifies that it will throw an illegal argument exception. Now you won't always see it on one line like that. A lot of times it'll be like this because that was a long line and really extended the code out. And I'm using a big font, so it makes it even worse, but I need to use a bigger font so that people can see on the video. So set radius, we specified that it's going to throw an illegal argument exception if something goes wrong. And we do a test here. As long as the new radius is larger than 0, and I think we saw this in the slides, we will set the radius to the new radius. Would have liked to seen this dot radius there. But if the radius is not greater than or equal to 0, I don't think I even like it being equal to 0, but this is not my example, so we'll go with it. But if it's a negative number, we are going to throw in an illegal argument exception that says the radius cannot be negative. We also have a getter that will tell us how many objects of the circle class have been created. And there is an option here to calculate the area of the circle. So somebody can, on that circle that might be created, they can call the find area method, and it returns the radius times pi. So that's the class. That's the class we're going to use. It has this method that we defined as being able to throw an exception. Over here, we have the test. So this is our driver class. It's going to test. It's going to create 3 of these circles with the parameter defined. So the first one's going to create a circle with a radius of 5. The second one is going to attempt to create a circle with a radius of -5. And the third line is going to try to create a circle with a radius of 0. Okay. Because we defined the set radius method as requiring we define that it's going to that it can throw an exception. We have to put this code in a try-catch block. And because it can throw a legal argument exception, we are catching an illegal argument exception. And if we catch it, we're just printing out the error code associated with that exception. We're not doing anything fancy here. After it does that, it's going to print out the number of objects that got created, because it's going to call circle with exception. That's the class. All that static getter that returns the number of objects that have been created. So let's go ahead and run it. And we can see that we get our error code that says the radius cannot be negative. We only created one. We only created one circle, because this one successfully ran and called that constructor. This one did not successfully run. And because it did not successfully run and it threw an exception, the code immediately jumped down here, printed out the error code. When that was done, I printed out the number of objects created. And the only one that had been successful was the first one. So we only created one object. Now, if we call this 25, that's a positive number. It should work. Let's see what happens. Here and run it. And now it says we created 3 objects. So 3 circles got created that time because the second one did not throw the exception that we defined over here.